Good evening. However, I can't wait to get this started and get all into this one. This is going to be a very, I've been waiting to do this for a long time. Uh, Putting together a little video about this one as we speak. The Moron and the Unlearned. They're going to be a very interesting piece. I'm going to touch on a couple of the things that the piece is going to touch on, but I want to study while we're doing this. So I want to do two things at once. Been a tumultuous week for I. So I'm not going to talk about any of that stuff, but I want to talk about first the differences between a person that is considered a moron and somebody that's considered unlearned. Because one of the issues that a lot of people think is that a moron is somebody who hasn't learned anything or that they're incapable of thought. And that's not exactly how it works. So we're going to first pull up this little page right here. I'm going to share with you guys, and then we'll go from there. One moment. Down. Share. This. Go to the group. Alrighty. Bam. So, moron. And I'm going to read all these out loud so that way we get the full grasp of what it is that we're dealing with. A moron. Noun. A stupid person. Synonyms: fool, idiot, ass, blockhead, dunce, dolt, ignoramus, imbecile, cretin, dullard, simpleton, clod. Now, I'm not going to get carried away into reading more of those, but just understand that the moron, even if we were to go from that part and we look for, I have some of these pictures we're going to see in my video. I love how the images for moron are white people. That's funny. One moment. There we go. And we use the etymology. And 1910, medical Latin from Greek, atik, moron, neuter for moros, foolish, dull, sluggish, stupid, a word of uncertain origin. Stop right there. They don't know where it came from. Okay? Now understand, the formal connection with Sanskrit mura, idiotic, is in doubt. Latin morus, foolish, is a loan word from Greek. So they're trying to say that even when people think that it's something else, it's not. It has nothing to do with the Indian people and their word idiotic, and that the actual word moron doesn't denote anything that anybody understands. Like you said. So here we are again. We're going to look up Unlearned. Damn. Here we are. A person not well educated. Excuse me, of a person not well educated. It's an adjective type word, and I'm going to be fair to this word too, and go somewhere and pick something up about it. We're not going to find the same type of etymology thing because it's a compound word. So let's look for it somewhere, anywhere but one of these. Let me see. Oxford. I don't like that one. Oop. Okay, there we go. Let's just read this. So let's just read both of these. Number one, an unlearned or uneducated or educated person, ignorant. That's the first one, A. B, showing or lack of learning or education. Two, not learned, unlearned lessons. A. And then B, no, known or acquired without conscious study, an unlearned sense of tact. So understand that it can be used as a muscle. What up, D-Mac? To insult you, but the word itself is not meant to actually insult you at all. The word moron shouldn't be an insult, you know, but I know it is. So I know there's people who probably feel that that you know that being called genius is a good thing, but it depends on, you know, the actual area where in which a person is saying these things about you. Greetings. So I'm gonna pull up something else real quick. But so just so we're clear, we you know, and I'll get to it again. A moron, they say is stupid, idiot, clod, right on. When you use words like that, ignoramus, to explain somebody, and then when you go to unlearned, and it just tells you that it's a person who's not educated or somebody who hasn't been formally educated in something that they do, right? That is that is that is not to insult you. That's not a slight. So to be unlearned, I'm unlearned in so many different areas and aspects, but because I understand what I'm not learned of, I'm aware of at least what it is. And maybe I don't have the skills and I haven't taken the time to acquire the skills for the things I'm unlearned of, but the baseness of knowing that I'm unlearned there gives me the advantage. Whereas the moron, it didn't say that they weren't unlearned. It didn't say that they were unlearned. But whatever that they do it in such a manner that you can't appreciate it other than to call them what it is that they seem like. When I was reading the book White Trash, and the lady makes it a point to point out how psychologists back in the early 1900s were so enthralled with this idea of the moron that they not only made it to where the moron would be a staple in many different ways, but they've infested the land. And I'm gonna tell you how. So when they talk about bad blood and like bad generations of people, she's talking about fathers who were having sex with their daughters because these white men, right, who may have been predominantly European, may have had a wife who wasn't predominantly European, and to make sure that his grandchildren were going to be more pure blood and not suffer what his children went through, this guy got the idea to go ahead and sleep with his own daughter. This is something that a person, I mean, you can't make it up, you know? You can't make these things up. People do these things all on their own. And what makes it more despicable is when we have people who try to make sense of the wickedness. It's just wrong. And I'm not making sense of it. I'm explaining what they did, and then in turn, her explanation was that, well, these people were poor. They were in, you know, squalid conditions. They weren't educated, right? So when you're using the reason of a person being unlearned as the reason why they're a moron, that's an insult. That's a true dire insult. But now let's move on to some study time, and be be patient with me because this is going to be very fun, you know. And you guys are I think you guys will actually enjoy this whole concept of comparing the unlearned to the moron here in a moment. Here we go. But we're gonna start with this one first. Eons ago, I think I shared this with y'all. Eons ago. In a video called Hidden Ancestry. Um, if I don't consciously put these links into the video, I will make sure that I put them in the description box later. I will do my best to remember that. However, I'm going to start here and I'm going to jump around to the different websites that I have, these two different ones up here. And there's a third one or fourth one that I might use later. But for right now, we'll use these three. And this is into the study time. Please have a pen and paper ready. We're going to compare some of the lesser habits of the what is the learned to some of the better habits or not so better habits of the unlearned. And the morons shall be exposed. Now, this is at sjsu.edu, and we're just talking about the origins of Germanic tribes. I'm only objective because other information is going to say other things. And I want y'all to understand something, that for people to be of genetic relation, their languages, their cultural actions won't differ that much. With all that said, here we go. The origins of the Germanic tribe is lost in the sands of time. What little is known is based upon linguistic evidence. The Germanic languages belong to the Indo-European family of languages that span Eurasia, from Ireland on to the west, India, west to India on the east. The origin of the Indo-European languages is believed to have been the merger of three peoples in the region between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea. One of the three excelled in warfare, one in agriculture, one in metalworking. The synthesis of these three strengths produced a folk that spread east and west. Now, listen right here. I'm not going to argue with whatever they're saying. I couldn't care less. Because everything that they just said is about to fall on its head. Now, listen to this part. The Western branch splits into the ancestors of the Baltic, the Celtic, the Germanic, and the Slavic tribes, as well as a welter of smaller groups. Listen, of smaller groupings, such as those of the Latins and Greeks. Stop right there. That is a huge discrepancy, because we're going to read down here in a minute. We're going to read about the introduction of the Germanic people into modern history. It's going to surprise you who introduces them into history, though they didn't name them by name just now. So we all know that the Greeks spoke Latin and the Romans spoke Latin. We're going to keep going forward. The languages of the Germanic tribes underwent a systematic sound change that distinguished them from the languages of the other branches. Stop. Even when you say that right there, there are other people who belong to so-called groups within these mentioned groups that were able to merge together much more seamlessly and smoothly than the groups that were called Latin and Greeks. Hold on, we're going to skip all the way down. I don't even want to read all this. Here we go. The first written record of the Germanic tribes was by the Roman historian Tacitus in 98 BCE. Hold on, stop right there. Let's go back up. They said that what? The western branch split into the ancestors of the Baltic, the Celtic, the Germanic, and the Slavic tribes, as well as a welter of smaller groups, such as those as the Latins. No, they meant the Romans and Greeks. Now stop right there. Why would it take a person who's one of your genetic cousins to introduce you into history? Doesn't even make sense. Now we're going to read this middle part just a little bit, so that way people don't get none of it twisted about what I'm saying. By 500 BCE, the Germanic tribes were occupying the southern shores of the Baltic and southern Scandinavia. Some of these Germanic tribes migrated and established control of new territories. Tribes from Scandinavia, known as Goths, migrated southwest to the areas north of the Black Sea. Stop. So remember, it already said that the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea is where they believe that this merger of these people took place, right on. So it sounds like some of these people went home or went closer to their home region, to where they were from, right? And then we're going to just move forward. Later, they divided into Ostrogoths and Visigoths and conquered areas in the northern shore of the Mediterranean Sea, so far west as the Iberian Peninsula. Later, the Franks from what is now Germany moved west and conquered the lowlands and Roman Gaul, giving it their name as France. Stop right there. So this is telling you that all those people that you've been thinking are different, that they try to tell you, oh, these guys are Anglos, or these guys are Jutes, or these guys are whatever, they're all the same. Now, I'm going to read something to you that's going to blow your mind, because they say all this, right? But why? How could you be the same people and be introduced by people that like, I don't think anybody really understands. Like, that doesn't make, it makes no logical sense. You know what I mean? It just doesn't hold any weight. Let me find a little spot real quick, and then let me go into it. And it might not be on this one. Let's move over to one of these, the Franks. Let's see. Because it's talking about, these are a lot of the same people. Oh, 1 second. I want to keep reading about Clovis. There's a particular part that I'm looking for, and it says that the Ostrogoths, the Visigoths, and these other guys, when they went down, let me see. This might be it. Haha, this is it right here. So the rise of the Franks. We're at the www.vlib.us. Boy, do I love reading, y'all. Okay. This is picking up in another spot, and it says, we have seen that the Roman Empire did not fall to murderous hordes of savage barbarians. The invaders who toppled the empire in the West were relatively few in numbers, were Christians who had long contact with Romans and had become some sophisticated and partially Romanized by that contact. Stop right there. So let's go ahead and expound that the Romans didn't make these people Christians the way that everybody wants to make it seem. Okay? The Romans didn't do that. I don't know why people believe that so strongly, but let's just read this next part, and it's going to really touch on what I'm getting at. The Visigoths, the Ostrogoths, the Burgundians, and Vandals actually tried to restore and preserve much of Roman imperial culture and its institutions. Stop. That tells you everything that they didn't do. And that is not true. You can't be of genetic constitution and relation and be working to hold on to what are parts of an institution that you would understand inherently. These people weren't related. They were not genetically related. And if we really go back to this, the first one I was at, the early history of the Germanic people, and we just go back up, right? And then it says that the Indo period, excuse me, that the origin of the Indo-European languages is believed to have been the merger of three peoples, right? It doesn't even specify what the peoples are, who they are, what their genetic constitution is, anything. Okay. So when they say Indo-European, that's an umbrella term. But understand that 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 the term Indo-European, even if you're going to lend it to the Japhetic people who are Romans and Grecians, you'd have to understand that the Indo-Europeans are nothing more than Gentiles. Gentiles are people who are under the banister of one set Japhet. So even when we get back to that point, we can't leave that. But what I'm getting at is this. Notice it says right here, the Latins and Greeks, right? But then when we go back down just a little bit, one stanza later, the first written record of the Germanic tribes is by the Roman historian Tacitus. Now, why that's so important is because these guys are fighting with these dudes forever. Okay? Are you hearing this? This is when they mean that they became partially Romanized. The king of the Franks, Clovis, ruled over the mixed Celtic, Roman, German population of Gaul. Now let's go right here again. It says what? The invaders who toppled the empire in the West were relatively few in numbers, were Christians who had long contact with Romans and had become sophisticated and partially Romanized by that contact. No, that's not what that means. That means that people like Clovis and before him who forced their way in, they were murderous savages who blood mixed so heavily with the people, right, that they tried to absorb into the culture and become the people. These are the white people who portray themselves as the Romans and the Greeks are not those people. That's my point. That is my whole point here. And the moron, now that I can get back to that, I can stop sharing all this stuff. One moment.